Okay, so today we're going to do the first service on the 2021 Honda Talon 1000 X4 Fox Live. And this is everything we're going to use for our first service. The first service is pretty extensive. It's more than just an oil change. We're going to be doing differential changes, which we recommend right now, the Honda differential oils. We're going to be putting in the AMSOIL. We love AMSOIL in all of our products. If you haven't seen our other videos, we really think it prolongs the life and the performance of the product. I recommend actually getting 2 oil changes at a time, or 2 services at a time when you order your parts. All the links are down below, like all of our videos. Don't you hate when they don't put the links in it to all the parts? But that's all down below, so don't worry about that. But always get 2 oil changes, and this is why. It's because when most things, when it's over $100 in shipping, you get free shipping. So we did that. We got 2 oil changes, 2 sets of oil filters for top filter, bottom filter. So I just want to say that. So when you see all this, this is 2 filters, 2 big filters for the top filter. And we'll show you that in a moment on the Honda Talon. This is 2 filters for the bottom filter. And OEM. I mean, you're driving a $25,000 or $30,000 machine. Get OEM products, even if there's aftermarket, especially for the filters. I know the AMSOIL isn't exactly OEM, but man, this stuff is great. So we got O-rings and everything we pull a bolt off today. We got, if we lose the washer, the ring on it, then we got extras for all that, because man, it'd be awful if you're in the middle of your first service to not have all the parts you need. So again, all these part numbers, you don't need to try to read in the video here all the different part numbers, because it's going to be down below, all the part numbers, OEM and etc. All right, the tools are pretty simple. We got a 17 millimeter socket, got a 12 millimeter and a 10 millimeter, and a 17 millimeter wrench, ratcheting wrench. We got a torque wrench for setting all of our torque, our foot-pounds on all of it. And let me just tell you that I talked to a couple people, and you really got to watch the foot-pounds, because they put some muscle on it and crack their housings. They're aluminum housings. So if you don't have a torque wrench, again, down below we'll recommend a couple inexpensive ones. But if you don't have a torque wrench, really use a torque wrench on this job. We got just a simple ratchet and a 6-inch or 8-inch extension, whatever that is. And that's all we're going to need for this job. So let's get out in the shop. And we're at Tony's Total Performance shop in Largo, Florida. And he's kind enough to let us use the lift and get this baby up in the air. There's the 2021 Honda Talon 1000 X4 Fox Live. And we're doing the first service on that bad boy. All right, let's go underneath and find where our oil drain holes are at. Okay, Ian, so we're underneath the 2021 Honda Talon 1000 X4, and we're about ready to do its first service at 100 miles. What are we looking at?
All right, so right now we're looking at a skid plate, and underneath the skid plate, we're at the rear of the vehicle, driver's side. So if you're looking forward and face, it'd be on the left. Mm-hmm. This is your engine oil drain, which you have one of 2. This is a 12 millimeter. And then we've got another guy right here, if you look close.
A second engine oil drain. Isn't that crazy?
So you've got 2.
Wonder why they put 2 on your end, Ian?
Probably because there's a hump right there in the oil pan. They want to make sure you get it all out.
Okay, so there's engine oil number 2.
And that's a 17 millimeter. We'll use a ratchet wrench to get up in there.
17 millimeter ratchet, yep.
And then this is clearly labeled your sub-transmission oil. And that also uses a 17 millimeter.
17 millimeter. We're just using a 17 millimeter ratchet wrench. All right.
Now again, the engine oil, using AMSOIL.
Because we love AMSOIL.
Yes, AMSOIL's good stuff.
And what are we're using a 10W40
ATB UTB synthetic.
And yes, guys, because you request every single time, yes, we put all the links down below. So all the links for everything we're using will be down below.
So 6.1 of this in the actual engine oil.
6.1 quarts of that, yep.
And 1.3 in the sub-transmission, and we'll show you how to fill it.
So
right now, let's go ahead and drain it.
So that's 7.5 quarts total, so you need to buy 8 quarts to do 1 change.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. And you guys, if you don't have like the fancy equipment and the lifts and all that, we're going to just get a set of car ramps that you can pull the your ATV on, just so you have a little room to work underneath that. We'll put a set of good car ramps down below here as well. And I'm sure you don't have a big rolling oil catcher like that. What do you got there, buddy?
Now when you pull the plug off, make sure the washer comes off with it.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to lose that little guy. We do have a spare just in case.
Yeah.
But
yeah, all the OEMs, in case you do lose that, are down below. We recommend that you buy extra set, because if you lose that washer, if it drops in your oil, or if for whatever reason last person did an oil change, lost it, and just put the bolt back in without that, is not good. So
you'll have a drip.
Yeah, you'll definitely have a drip. So we got all the links for the OEM parts down below for the washers, and you should always just buy a set. I put them in a Ziploc bag and just keep it with the machine. All right, what are we doing next here, buddy?
Just gonna go through and pop the rest of these drain plugs after each one drains, and let it all drain out. Then we'll change the filters.
Okay, just to recap a little, Ian. So we're using 6.1 quarts in the main.
And the engine oil.
In the engine oil, and
1.3 on the subtrans.
1.3 quarts of oil, AMSOIL 10W40, yes, in the sub-transmission.
You got it.
Yeah.
Okay, getting the drain plugs back in, and 21 foot-pounds is the torque on the drain plug. So, very important to torque it right, because you're dealing with aluminum. If you over-torque, you can strip the threads.
If you don't use a torque wrench and you over-tighten those, what's the worst thing that can happen?
More than likely, you'll pull the threads through, and you'll have to have it machined. It's a real...
It is an expensive lesson. So for you guys to say, "No, I'll just use my my regular ratchet," please don't do that. You'll learn your lesson on that. I have. So.
All right, so we just came out from underneath, and now we are on top here on the driver's side. And you can see this is where the engine oil filter is.
The top? The top
right
is the engine oil filter?
And this is the DCT, which is the dual clutch transmission filter, which we'll be changing as well, since we are doing the sub-transmission oil. So we'll be changing both of these. There is a spring in the center of the cap on both of them that gives a little tension. So make sure you don't drop that. We want to put that back in when we put the filter in. We'll show you that when we do it. And I dropped the spring.
Don't lose your spring, Ian. We just dropped it. Probably
right.
Fell in the oil pan down there.
In our oil pan.
And the only part I didn't buy that we're actually playing with is the spring. So I'll put the springs down below, because as you can see, you can definitely drop them. And if you drop them, you can lose them.
And these only go on one way. So you put the oil filters back in, they only can go in one way. So the spring will go here. The seal will go up against the housing. So can't mess that up. Very simple.
Just drop your filter right in the old drain pan. Good to keep a shop rag around to make sure you clean out the inside of those housings, to make sure that there's no oil or any steel shavings or anything, especially on the first service, because that break-in service is, that's where you get the shavings at. So you just want to make sure you clean those babies out good.
Alright, so that little DCT filter is really in there, and it's snug. And
so it just didn't pop out. Did the spring come out, Ian?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we got the spring out, but the filter's in there tight, and we can't get it out just by moving it with our hands. So what are we going to do here?
I'm going to take a pick and just kind of jiggle it, get it loose.
That was in there, wasn't it?
Yeah, just need a little persuasion.
Out she comes.
Alright, so I'm just cleaning out the caps, making sure they're nice and clean, got all the residual oil out. And another thing, check your O-rings for cracks. If you need it, replace them. There will be a part number in the link down below. So check that out. Also clean out, wipe out the housing inside real well before you install your filters. So we've got our new engine oil filter here, Honda OE parts. And we've got our dual clutch transmission filter, also known as a DCT. So we're going to go ahead, get these guys out. And we're just gonna put just a little dab of oil on the O-ring. Everybody knows that they do that on the oil filters when they change the oil on their cars too, The dual clutch transmission, and I was reading about that, and that was really came to pass in the ATVs, and it makes it so you really keep your acceleration in between gears. It just seems like seamless as you're shifting gear. It's like a hybrid almost. It's automatic, but a manual at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, almost like a Tiptronic or something like that.
Yeah. I saw that in the Ferraris. I don't know if this is true, but they have dual clutch transmissions in the super exotic cars. And man, it just like keeps you in gear. It keeps your RPMs up as it, kind of like eases into second gear. Like, it's just an amazing technology. And really, Honda did a great job of that, because, 99% of everybody else is still belt driven.
Right. And then I would think that the gear-driven dual clutch and everything is going to make it last a lot longer, especially in the environment that they put these things in.
You mean that we put them in?
Yes.
We are the they.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. This poor thing has no idea what's coming.
Yeah, you guys, when Ian says you have no idea what's coming, you want to make sure you subscribe to our channel. It takes hours to do these videos, to order all the parts, to get all the part numbers, to do all the, shooting, 2 hours of shooting, and then 3-4 hours of editing. And, this is the thing that most people don't know, is that we don't get paid a penny from YouTube until we get 1,000 subscribers. So we ask you to subscribe now. Help us out a little bit. Get us to 1,000 people challenge. And you're it. You could do that right now by just clicking yes. Subscribe, and make sure you hit thumbs up too if you like this video. All right, what are you working on, Ian?
I'm going to set my torque wrench to 9 foot-pounds.
That is a nice torque wrench.
And
Digital.
Don't over-torque the housing.
What kind of torque wrench is that, just in case people ask?
This one here, Snap-on. We'll have a few different ones you can look at. You don't need to have this one.
Obviously, Snap-on is like the Cadillac of torque wrenches, but we'll put a couple down below.
My hands are all slick.
And what's the foot-pound on this?
9.
That is on the DCT. Is it on both the oil
filter and the DCT filter?
So 9 is not a lot. And again, we heard someone saying that they just used a regular ratchet and they cracked the whole aluminum housing. So you got to be really careful, because 9, when I saw Ian taking off those covers, I'm like, man, that is just barely on there. It seemed like, like I always feel like you need to put muscle on something to get the bolts to break, but they came loose pretty easily. So
precision equipment.
Precision equipment, exactly. And that little beep lets you know you're at 9 foot-pounds. Excellent. So filter first. Oil filter first. This goes for the DCT as well. So make sure it's seated in there fully. And then you're going to put your spring on.
So this is the fun part. The spring.
Keep the spring right around that little lip that's on there, and to get your cover on at the same time.
you did it right, it'll press right on.
Sound like it had a little snap on it, like it snapped in, did it? Or yeah, good. The engine oil filter is 9 foot-pounds. And now a word from our sponsors. Yeah, that snap-on torque wrench is just freaking awesome. But I think they're like $300-400. I'll do some research on that, find the best price, and put it in the link below. Just on all these machines are just such high precision machinery. You know, to have a really good torque wrench is important. Really, I mean, you're going to use it so much.
And I went through and kind of snugged them up evenly.
So you're going from one nut or one bolt to another bolt to make sure it seats down evenly.
Yes. See, now that one's loose. Okay, we're just cleaning off some of this residual oil here. Hopefully we don't have any drips. Okay, so now it's time to fill our DCT, or the gearbox, or the dual clutch transmission.
This is on the passenger side of the machine, and it's right in front of the rear wheel.
And this is the dipstick and also the fill point. So
And we're just going to stick a long neck funnel in there. We're going to add 1.3 quarts of motor oil, the same motor oil that we use for the engine, the 10W40.
put our AMS oil in there.
Are we plugging AMS oil again?
Might as well, that's what we're using.
We do love AMS oil. AMS oil, if you're watching this, sponsor our products. Sponsor our videos. On the side of the AMS oil quart containers, obviously there's a window to tell what 1/3 of a quart is, but quart's 32 ounces, so divide that into thirds, about 10 ounces.
All right, and let's check our fluid.
And important, really important to get your levels perfect on these, because when you're only dealing with 1 quart, 1.3 quarts, like you know, 1 ounce either direction is pretty significant. You know, it's like, you know, pretty significant.
And we're right in the safe zone. We're good. All
Okay,
right, let's
so
move to the engine oil.
So the DCT is full, and now we're moving up to put our oil into the where the air box is at.
Okay, so to get to the fill for your engine oil, simply remove your cover, which is also the cover to access the air box.
So that's our air filter. As part of our first service, we're going to be taking a look at that. But right now, we're staying focused on getting our oil job done. And there, where Ian is at, is the oil fill port.
So we know it calls for 6.1. So we're going to go ahead and do the 6.1, and then we're going to fire it up let it run for a minute, get to operating temperature, and then we're going to double check the fluids again. So get this filled up and we'll be right back. All right, got her filled up. On the driver's side, right here at the top, as you see, is your dipstick, and you can see the line you want it in between these two marks here. And we're right on the money. 6.1. But we're going to fire it up and we're going to double check it.
6.1 quarts of our favorite AMSOIL.
Yes. There you go.
When are they going to sponsor us? AMSOIL. All right, so you're going to fire it up just for a minute or two and let that motor oil circulate, and then we're going to check it one more time. We'll be done with the oil, and then we're... She purrs like a mean machine.
Likes to be abused.
And so, Ian, how long do you think this should take if we weren't videotaping? Like, how long should it take someone to do their first oil service? Actually, it's not an oil service; it's a first service.
Yeah, it's a first service. You know, it says to check the valve tolerances, but if needed, if the engine's making noise in the service manual, it says something about that. And that's what they do. They'll listen to it, and if it's making noise, then they'll adjust the valves. But ours isn't making any noise, so we're going to let it ride. You know. But yeah, next will be the air filter, and another cool thing we're going to go into is the particulate filter.
Tell us about that. What's a particulate filter? And
so we'll get into that in just a few minutes when we pull the air box apart.
aha, okay.
So very, very neat. Save you a lot of money. So.
We like to save money while we're breaking stuff. All right, so the oil's topped off. What are we doing next, Ian?
Oh, let's move on to the differential. But first, let's check the fluid one more time.
All right.
Before we move on. All right, yeah, so we're good.
All right, so what are we going to do now? We're going to do the differential fluid change.
Lift this baby up and do the front and rear diff oils. And all right, so we're about to drain our rear differential. Down here you'll see, this is on the passenger side of the back, you'll see the drain bolt. And right up above it, right here, after, when you go to fill it, this is going to be the actual level. So you want to take that bolt out too.
That's a, what is that, 17 millimeter?
No, these are 10 millimeters.
Yeah.
These two here. And then up top, right above the CV axle, this is going to be where you fill the rear diff. This is a 17 millimeter. You take that off, you fill it out. It's about 13 to 13.2 ounces, I believe. You put it in, and it will start to run out of this hole. And that's when you know it's full. So we're going to drain it. We're going to put the plug back in, and then we'll fill it. And you'll see it run out a little bit and dribble, and that's
all right,
when you know we got it.
Let's do it.
These don't take a whole lot of torque. They're about 9 foot-pounds when we go to reinstall them, so you'll not want to overdo it. You saw it was real easy getting them off. Notice they have the washers on here as well, so make sure you get the washer off when you take your bolt out.
And we do have the washer part number down below the video, just in case you lose one of these or whatever. You should have it before you do your change. Make sure you have it, because if you don't have it when you do that, then your ride's down for a while.
looked like Honda got it nice and full, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
All right, here's where I usually make a mess. Let's see how good I
It's
do.
coming out of the higher, Ian just made a comment, it's coming out of the higher hole, not the lower hole, which means they maybe overfilled it. So again, just to recap, so you take out the bottom drain hole, the one right above it is the fill, so that you know when it's full, and then the 17 millimeters where you fill it at. Okay, so what are you doing, Ian?
All right, so we are pulling the fill plug out. We've drained the oil out of the differential. And I'm going to reinstall and retorque the bottom bolt.
And the fill plug is a 17 millimeter at the top of the unit right there.
All right, so I've got my washer on my bolt for the drain bolt, and I'm getting it placed, starting it by hand to make sure it threads in so you don't cross thread it.
So that's the bottom bolt, the drain bolt that they're putting back in. It's a 10 millimeter. We're putting it back in. We're torquing it down to how many foot-pounds?
9 foot-pounds.
9 foot-pounds. And then we're going to go up to that 17 millimeter that we just took off, and that will be our fill hole. Once it comes out the middle hole, then it will be full. That's about 13.1 ounces.
All right, 9 foot-pounds right there. So we've got our wonderfully long and weathered and curved funnel. Putting our high-powered gear oil into the rear end here, rear differential.
And that's 8 fluid ounces bottled, so 1 for sure goes in.
13.2,
Oh,
I
excuse
believe.
me, 13.2.
And put it in there already. Just kind of topping it off after we let it sit. And you'll see it running out of the middle hole down here, so you know. There she goes right there, if you can catch that, George. Means we got her good and full. It took about 4 ounces, give or take. So, you know, just kind of let it finish draining into your oil pan, let it sit for a minute, and then button it up, retorque that inspection hole to 9 foot-pounds, and we'll put that one back on. That one gets 21 foot-pounds torque. Installing the fill plug back in its hole. And just go ahead and make sure that, you know, there's no cracks on the O-ring. I believe we do have the O-ring part number. If you check below, that part number will be there. So that's something you want to have when you start doing your service. You want to have this stuff laying around in case you need it. But this one looks good. This unit's brand new. We're going to go ahead and reinstall it with it. And let's see if I can do it without dropping it. Here I go. All right, let's get the torque wrench.
And what are you torquing that to again?
21 foot-pounds.
21 foot-pounds. Again, that's a 17 millimeter top plug, a fill plug that he's torquing down to 21 foot-pounds.
Now we're done running out, so we can go ahead and put the inspection
And what millimeter is that
bolt
plug?
back in, which is a 10 millimeter.
10 millimeter. And again, that's between the 17 millimeter, the top fill, and the 10 millimeter that's right below the center one. The center ones we're reinstalling, which is the fill plug to let you know that it's full.
And again, check, make sure your washer's there.
Always make sure your washer's there. And the link is below, because we do lose those. I've lost, oop, there goes one.
There you go.
Did we just do that?
I think I've done that 3 or 4 times. All right, and let's get her to 9. Here we go. Got the beep. We are good.
9 foot-pounds.
We are full, we are torqued, and let's go on to the front and wrap this thing up.
So the rear differential complete, oil complete, and we're moving on to the front of the Talon to do the front. All right, so we're at the front of the Honda Talon, and we're doing the front differential fluid change.
Yes. All right, so follow me. Okay, right here is the drain bolt.
Got it.
Right in the center of the differential.
Yep.
So we're gonna get this. This is a 10 millimeter drain plug.
10 millimeter, yep.
And on the side, they did something a little different. If you can catch this right here. Where'd she go? Right here. 17 millimeter, looks like the fill plug on the top of the rear diff.
It's really dark, but yeah, we'll bring it down when you're ready to do that.
So we're going to pull that off. That is actually the inspection plug as well as the fill plug. But we'll get a light and we'll show that to you when we fill it. Alright, so try not to drop this one.
And again, for the guys that are doing this in their backyard, don't worry about it. Yes, we have a lift here, but you could just get a set of ramps that right below, like everything we do, we try to find you the best deal possible. And if you just get a set of good car ramps, you can get the clearance, because the Honda Talon's already pretty tall.
And again, I got my washer here.
What's a millimeter on that?
17.
17 millimeter.
So take a look, everything looks good. We had no leaks, so we're gonna roll with it. We're not gonna replace that O-ring this time.
The 17 millimeter again is the fill plug.
The fill and the inspection plug. It's the same
and
thing
the inspection.
on the front, yes.
Inspection means that once you fill it and it overfills out of that hole, that you're full. So the back, it had 3 different bolts. The front only has 2 bolts.
And then we use the same oil in the rear, or the front, as we do in the rear. So
Good.
we are going to reinstall our drain plug with the 10 millimeter. Again, make sure you have your washer on there.
10 millimeter, make sure you have the washer on there. And what's the foot-pounds?
Again, we're doing 9 foot-pounds.
Doesn't take a lot, does it?
Not at all. All right. So here we are on the passenger side. You can see the big hole there where the fill plug's out. And I'm going to fill it. Once you see it running over, then you'll know that it's full. So fill it, let it drip, and let it drip for a minute or two, and then go ahead and torque it back on it to 17 millimeter, 21 foot-pounds.
21 foot-pounds and 17 millimeter. All right, so this one's pretty simple because the back one was 3 holes, remember? 3 bolts, and this one is only 2. And once that baby's full right now, when Ian puts that funnel in there and just fills it and it starts dribbling out, it is full, and we'll put in the drain plug at 17 millimeter at 21 foot-pounds, and that will be the end of that job.
Okay, so we are filling the front differential up. This is
The 17 millimeter?
17 millimeter, which is your fill plug. Also, it tells you when it's full. So it's about 13.5 ounces. When it starts to drip out, you'll see it coming down. That's when it stops. Let it sit for a minute, and then torque it back to the 21 foot-pounds. So I'm going to finish filling this guy up. We'll wrap this up, and we will be done changing fluids. So gear oil, so after the first 100 miles, you're supposed to change the gear oil, and then about 1,800 miles after that. From there on out, that'll be your service interval.
So again, so it's 100 miles, the first change on the differential, and then every 1,800 miles after that, you'll have to do that. Itsy bitsy skinny stream that's coming down, but that's all that it is. You'll know you're full. So that was what, 13.8 ounces?
Like 13.5, just
13
shy
and a
of
half.
14.
Yeah. So again, these bottles are 8 ounces, so it would be about 1 3/4 bottles, and you should see that stream coming out of that front end differential.
You buy 3 bottles, you're safe.
Yeah, to do the front and back is, 3 bottles is enough to do front and back. So again, we'll have that down below in a link for the 3 bottles. We'll, as always, trying to find you the best prices possible.
Right, 17mm torque wrench, 21 foot-pounds of torque. My beep, we're good to go.
17 millimeter, 21 foot-pounds of torque, and finito.
And we are done playing with the fluids. Okay, last part of the 100-mile service. We are checking the air filter.
So tell me about these air filters, Ian.
Well, you do not clean with compressed air. So we're going to take this off and take a look.
Well, so earlier in the video, you were talking about that we're going to do a modification in coming videos. So first, subscribe now. We're going to keep on building this machine until it is just a crazy man machine of the highest caliber.
Hey, now I've seen women giving these things hell too.
You're absolutely right, because I have too. But so, and one of those things we're going to install on this, so we don't have to keep on changing out these crazy expensive filters that everybody keeps on talking about. What are we going to install on this in the future, Ian?
It's going to be a particulate filter, so
Our particulate filter.
we'll tell you all about it on the next episode.
So subscribe now, and when we put that bad boy
There may be
in.
an S-Pod coming, so
Oh, and what's an S-Pod?
that runs all the electrical accessories that we're going to be bolting on this thing. So
Because everybody bolts 1,000 different accessories on here, and you better have a command center for all those accessories that actually make
makes
sense.
wiring so simple.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So what are we doing here?
We're going to pull the filter out. Rolling on these bolts. Okay, so we have the filter off. It's a little dirty, 100 miles. Not terrible, but you can see the dust that's coming in pre-filter.
Actually, put your finger on that, Ian. Just look at that. Yep, you can actually see it. Pre-filter, so there's a lot of dust and particulate coming in there, and then going through our filter here, which is pretty friggin' dirty just for 100 miles. Well, that's a dirty filter. Anyways, go ahead, Ian. Then it comes through this, and then where does it get sucked into?
And then you see this is nice and clean here, but it comes through, passes through the filter, gets sucked into the intake.
And
Right
into
here.
the motor.
And into the engine for our combustion.
So what do we do to service this filter? Do we bang it? Because it says right here, it says, do not clean with air compressor.
You replace it.
Oh. Oh. And we were told these are very expensive. I won't quote you a price because we don't know exactly,
So
but
when we do the new setup, we will make this last as long as we can. And
the new setup being
the particulate filter.
the particulate filter. So should people subscribe now if you want to see how we're going to build this and create a particulate filter?
Yeah, follow along and see all the cool stuff we bolt on this thing.
Invented a particulate separator that will actually deal with the
Particle separator, yes.
particle separator.
And yeah, actually, when your filter starts getting clogged up, and these guys that are racing, the filters start getting clogged, and it'll rob you of your horsepower. So that's you'll
Drastically,
feel
yeah.
a drastic loss.
All you got is fuel and air, right?
All right, wrapping this baby up for tonight. All right. Then we just got to reset the.
We're going to throw the box back in and lock that baby down, and then our next video, Ian, is going to be pretty exciting with the particulate, or no, what's it called? Not particulate.
Particle separator.
Particle separator.
You keep
So-
thinking diesel.
Yes, make it a diesel. Give it a horsepower. So, subscribe now. We'll be doing that probably in the next week or so, I would think. And subscribe now, and you will see our next amazing installs and modifications on this amazing machine.
We're going to need some skid plates for sure.
Oh, well, and skid plates for sure. All right, well, that was a long night of doing the oil change in the first service on the Honda Talon. It took about 3 hours in total. I think all the time that it took was just using cameras and all that. So if I were going to estimate, I'd probably say that the service is only going to take you about an hour, maybe less, depending how mechanically skilled you are. And if I were going to evaluate 1 to 10 on mechanical ability, 10 being you got to be a master mechanic, I would probably say this is a 2. All it is really taking bolts out and drain plugs and being able to measure a dipstick. So it doesn't take a lot of skill set. Alrighty, so again, all we did was hold that button in for about 2-3 seconds before you turn the key on, and then when you turn the key on, the little wrench will blink once or twice. Take your finger off it, and ba-dum, it's reset. So let's just check. We'll start it to make sure that our maintenance wrench light went off. And it is off. All right, so our next service will be 600 miles from our first service. So about, or actually 500 miles, so it would be at 600 miles. So that's it. That's how easy that is. If you haven't subscribed yet, please give us a hand, because I don't know if most people know that, but YouTube doesn't pay you a red penny until you have 1,000 subscribers. So we worked our butt off. We have hundreds, if not 1,000 plus hours in just editing 30, 40 videos and putting them up. And you can say thank you by simply subscribing to our channel, become part of our Miller Family Farm Trust family. And it doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us a load. So please click like, because if you don't hit like, they don't push our videos up for recommendation. And hit the subscribe button so that you will get notified when we put new videos up. So thank you, family. Thank you so much for doing that now. And we'll see you on the next video. Let's go riding.